Yeah. But I go back in my life to tell you about what happened to me when I was about 30 years old. My mother had recently died and left some money. I think it was about 1,000 kroner. And I said to myself, what can I do with this money? So it doesn't just waste it on food and spaghetti and meatballs and things like that. I decided to go to Leningrad. Because it was, by that time, it was Leningrad, now it is St. Petersburg. It was in the newspaper, you could go by bus for about 675 kroner. I went. It was, I always start to cry when I remember the terrible shock I experienced when I went to all the exhibitions in Leningrad that showed the people's suffering during the Second World War. I didn't know anything. And now I say, I knew it had been a war, but I had learned that it was the US who had missed a lot of people and that they saved us from Nazis. For me, it was a shock. This shock, I think I have still lived in that shock. And I promised myself, and I kept that promise. From that on, I have been working, talking, informing, telling people about this and about the horrible war. That I used to carry this to show what I learned, that 27 million people had died, 2,000 cities had been burnt to the ground, 70,000 villages, 100,000 collective agriculture, 40,000 hospitals, 64,000 schools and gymnasium, and 43,000 libraries, and 44,000 theater buildings, and 32,000 factories, and 10,000 power plants, and 7 million horses, 17 million cows and cattle, 20 million pigs, and 27 million sheep, and 110 million hens and chickens. These were brought to Germany to feed the people or to feed the Nazi soldiers. This knowledge made me a peace activist. To this day, I'm traveling all over the world to inform about this and about other things. What I'm doing is to inform about the dominance, the total dominance by the United States of America with their military bases. How do I know that? When I was 70 years, I said, don't give me a crystal vase or other things. I want money because I want to go to Ecuador. Why are you going to Ecuador? Well, there is a conference about US bases, US military bases. Why in Ecuador, in Quito? Because Rafael Correa had come to power in 2006 on the promise to close the US military base Manta at the coast in Ecuador. And he was elected president. And the peace organizations, they invited the whole world to start the movement to close US military bases in the whole world. They are about 1,000 installations outside US borders. So I have been traveling to different parts of the world. And I also joined the global network against nuclear power and weapons in space. That brought me to South Korea first. And there the US had 100 military installations. And I went the second time to Korea, South Korea, to Jeju Island. Jeju Island is a small island about big as the double of Gotland, and there the United States now builds a huge military base to attack China. So I was there in 2012, and I went into the base. I crept under the fence to show that we were together, 12 persons who crept under the fence and went into the base, and we were arrested. And I will never forget the face of the police who interrogated me, and she understood that I was 75 years old by that time, and she didn't really know what to do with me. And I said, question me, but do it rapidly because I have to leave the plane tomorrow. So I was released from the arrest. So in that way I have been traveling, going into bases in different parts of the world. In Britain I was arrested twice and had to pay fine. So we who see the danger, the horrifying danger, we have to take action, and that's what I've been doing.
Take it around.
So, one thing that I realized when I was enrolled in the global network against US military bases and against the militarization of space, I started to think, how is it in the north? What do we have? What kind of installations do we have in the northern part of the world? So, here up in the north, we have a lot of installations. We have Vardø base. That is a base that was installed in about year 2000, which is one of the world's strongest radar bases, Globus 2, in the northern Norway. It is a US installation. We have Svalbard with a lot of satellite downloading stations. In the north we have S-Range, which is the world's biggest downloading stations from satellites. There is also Greenland, Thule base. So in the north we have most of the important radars for US control of the entire world. A specific information for me was that the radar installations in Svalbard in the north were essential for the war conducting in Libya. The first war where they used the satellites was in the Yugoslavian war, and then the Afghanistan war and Iraq war. But coming to the installations in the north, I
We can show it from this side maybe too.
Okay.
From above. From above, so like that. A bit closer, yeah. Okay. And this was the book, yeah.
This book is very important. I have invited Bård Wormdahl. He is a journalist living in Vadsø. He has written the book The Satellite War and showed that all wars are using satellites, as I said. And here he tells about the Libya, as I told you, and how important and essential for US modern war. The United States had about more than 50% of all satellites encircling the whole globe. In Sweden and in Norway and in Denmark, is an extremely important area, as we are so close to Russia. What has been a problem is that Finland and Sweden are neutral countries. So the Prime Minister of Britain, he invited all Nordic countries, including Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland, to Britain, to London in 2011, to form a Nordic alliance. So that's why Sweden and Finland, in the back door, had been drawn into NATO with all kind of exercises like cold response in 2012 with 16,300 troops close to Russian border. We came to know about it because one plane crashed into the Kebnekaise mountain and 5 Norwegians were killed. The next year, in 2014, there was an exercise, cold response, with 16,000 troops from different countries. Stänga av den där, jag ska behöva
Vad?
papper där jag hade skrivit upp. Ja, men jag har det ju här.
Ja. Det är bara röra vid den så kommer du tillbaka. Du kan, ja. Dra över fingrarna över den. Så då. Ja.
This has, of course, all the exercises and all NATO enlarging to the east, to Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania, and to Poland and Romania and Bulgaria, had of course been extremely dangerous for Russia. So that's one of the reasons why Russia has adopted a new military doctrine. And if you see in the Baltic states, there are almost on a daily basis military maneuvers in different bases, from different bases. Like here we have the Baltic countries with the US 7th Army's Multinational Training Command is based in Grafenwehr in Germany. So it's very close for them to guide and to be active in the Baltic states. So the war games like Saber Strike, the US, Britain, France, Canada, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Sweden, Finland, Norway, Denmark, Germany took part. And that's almost every second year. No, every half a year, in the autumn and in the summer.
Twice.
Twice a year.
Yeah.
And you can see that the US has settled down and made it their own base in Emari Air Base in Estonia, and it's modernized, extremely modernized, to fit in with US demands for NATO standards. And there you have Michigan Air National Guard, and there is also the 21st Theater Sustainment Command and 2nd Cavalry Regiment, the Pennsylvania Army National Guard, Michigan Air Guard 4th Marine Division, and Joint Terminal Air Controller, which make is conducting war games. It's a kind of a command center. All these comes from Washington Air Guard, Joint Multinational Simulation Center, which is conducting all NATO war games. And there are also on almost every second year every year Baltic operations war games at sea. Last time it was 30 war ship, as many war air wings, and there was last time US, Denmark, Estonia, France, Georgia, Germany, Lithuania, Latvia, and the Netherlands, and Poland, and Sweden. And for the first time, the US was training troops to invade from the sea into Lithuania. It was a land maneuver from sea, so the troops were training to go from the ships into land in Lithuania. So US Marine Corps, Lithuania's Special Operation Forces, and USS Normandy missile cruiser, and 2 B-52 strategic bombers, and 2 German Tornadoes, and a lot of other warplanes from all Baltic countries were training war, together with Holland, Poland, and the goal, or the target this time, the last time, was White Russia. Vice Admiral Frank Pandolf, who was a commander in US 6th Fleet, which is stationed in Italy, said that Baltops is an important common goal, has an important common goal to increase the marine security in the Baltic states with increasing interoperability. The US European Command and the US Naval Striking Force and Support Force are always present at these war games. So, in the Baltic states, there is almost a perpetual war training area at sea and at land. And it should scare us all because it is a war preparation in my view.
Clearly.
Ska jag säga mer? Jag har mitt. Are there any resistance? Well, we are some in Women for Peace, and we did something spectacular last spring. On the 2nd of June, we went to Luleå airfield, which is a huge training area with parallel airstrips. So all the air exercises which are conducted within NATO, even if we are not in NATO, but Sweden hosts a lot of NATO exercises, as I had mentioned before, like cold response, but this time was Arctic Challenge exercise. Arctic Challenge exercise with 115 air wings and 90 of them in the air at the same time. We in Women for Peace and Swedish Peace Council finds these exercises extremely provocative, extremely dangerous. So we were 10 women, went to Luleå airfield and cut off the fence surrounding the Air Force, the airfield, and crept into the area. We had warned before, and so the plane were standing, but we went in and we just didn't care when they tried to block us. We went into the runway where the planes took off, were supposed to take off, and we just went in and they came and took us eventually. So they brought us to a place where we were sitting, waiting in a circle, singing and talking. And everybody was questioned, one by one. I wasn't questioned, I don't know why, but they didn't want to question me. And eventually we got a letter from the military or from the police that said that we don't want to accuse you for anything. And we were a little bit surprised actually, because this was a criminal behavior to say the least. But we understood that the military or the police, probably most the military, didn't want to make an affair of this, because if we were dragged in front of the court, it might have been a spectacular affair which they wanted to avoid.
You have some more maps, don't you?
Yeah, what did I have? Yeah, I had this map. And then had and that.
Yeah. Wow.
I use that. You can see I am an old teacher.
Yeah.
I was teaching during my whole career. So maps are important for me. To understand the full scope of US dominance of the world. It's really horrifying. all these bases, the white one are raiders. They are, as I said, surrounding the whole world. And you have the red, they are nuclear weapons. Here you have the submarines, Trident submarines. One submarine can eradicate the whole northern hemisphere if they launch their rockets. So Trident submarines are about 2 patrolling all the time here in the north outside Russia, and 6 are now located outside China. That is the target. Australia is most people really don't understand Australia's role, but it is one of the most important platforms for controlling. If they haven't had all these installations they have here, like Pine Gap in the middle, it's a huge radar station, they wouldn't have been able to launch the war in Vietnam. Australia's installations were essential for US war in Vietnam here in the south, because they had all the guidance and they could go there with their airplane after bombing and refuel and repair. And now
Refuel, yeah.
refuel, yes. And now that is not, here there is Okinawa, and here is also the submarines going here, very close to China. But the resistance or the objections from Okinawa now has made it so they're moving to Guam. Guam will be the center for controlling China, because China is the target now. No, here is Guam, I pointed wrong. Here is Guam. And they have now 31 installations, these small islands. I met a woman now when I was in Japan. She came from Guam, and she was horrified by the enlarging of US military in Guam, because it will be the launching pad to war, planning for war against China. So all these installations, specifically those in the ring around the whole Eurasian continent, I will mention Diego Garcia, also an atoll, a small atoll, where they chased away the people living there, and there you have one of the world's biggest airstrips, for which they used when they bombed Afghanistan and Iraq. There was Diego Garcia, a very important place when they started bombing Iraq and Afghanistan. So Diego Garcia was extremely important. And I also want to mention now, when it's very difficult to see here.
Maybe we should put it on here, so it straightens out.
What we can't see now, so I really have to make another map, is that here you have Ukraine, and here is the Mediterranean Sea. You can hardly see it because I put so many bases here, but the sixth fleet, which is stationed here in Italy, you can hardly see Italy, but there you see Italy. It goes here and into Ukraine, and we should have a better map, because now the US have bases in Bulgaria and in Romania, and from there they launch a future war towards Russia.
Just a map for Europe would be good, yeah, a big map. Yeah.
Yes, because I usually talk about the world, but I have found out now I really should have a map just over Europe to see what the Sixth Fleet, or the in Italy, how important it is now when they control Ukraine and control Russia. So Russia have all reasons to be scared for what's going on. I'm really disappointed with this. You cannot see here, but here is Turkey, and there you have, because it was so many. So I have to change this.
But these bases in Baltikum you were talking about.
Yeah, the bases here. I put it down. Amare Airfield is a U.S. Air Force, of course, and then Lilvarde, and then Šiauliai in Lithuania. No, not Lithuania. In Latvia. No, Latvia, Lithuania. Yes,
Yeah,
you're
that's
right. I mixed them up.
Lilvarde
But there you
in
have.
Latvia and Šiauliai in Lithuania.
Yes, and then you have Poland. They have 6 very close to the Russian border here in Poland. So during the years, I think this is 10 years old, I have been able to change. But I have to underline that these bases are those the U.S. have outside their own border.
Yeah.
So I have only pointed out what they have outside their own border.
Yeah.
So that's why. And here you can see in Colombia, which has been enlarged by 6 or more military bases. So they go in from Colombia to Venezuela and harass them and make in-flight there. It's really difficult and dangerous with all the U.S. bases in Colombia. And Colombia has turned out to be an extremely important country for U.S. control of Latin America. So
Yeah.
they are controlling the whole world.
Yeah.
Here you have the names of the places.
Okay.
You can see here, you can see the names of the places, of the bases.
And what has happened in Iceland? You said something about that.
What's all there?
There's something has happened in Iceland, you said.
In?
Iceland.
Well, yeah, I heard that Sweden, we are one of the best guys in U.S. military planning. The U.S. has left Keflavik in Iceland. But who is patrolling in Iceland? It's Swedish Air Force. So they are doing, so to say, the U.S.
Replacing.
the U.S. in Iceland. So I will underline that the whole North is extremely important for the U.S. Not only for what's treasure that will come up after the ice melts in the Arctic. It is oil. 1/5 of the world's oil is under the Arctic ice, and 1/3 of the gas. So the U.S. is extremely observant and is there. They are there now, and because they can't do everything, so they have to be. That's why Jens Stoltenberg is now appointed the High Director of NATO to be close to the US. And the Norwegian platform has always, during the Cold War, Norway was extremely important for the US. The whole Norway was called the U.S. East Atlantic border for all their installations. And now I saw a picture in my computer. It came up, a film from the northern Norway. You can see a huge ship coming ashore and opened up, and from there I think it was about 100 vehicles coming out from the ship, and they are now stored in big caves in the northern mountains of Norway. So something is prepared. It's under preparations, and we have to be alert. We really have to be alert. And here you have the book about the globalization of NATO, where he writes, Mario Darius Nazemroaya, writes about what NATO and US are preparing and installing in the world. Another absolutely new book is this, to underscore the US bases. David Wine has written The Base Nation, How US Military Bases Around Abroad Harm America and the World. This is a description about the US bases I was talking about. It was edited this autumn, so it's absolutely
Autumn 2015.
15, yes. This is from 14, I think, but this is from 15. So there are books, there are information. Sad to say, most is in English, but they are important books. A book that is in Swedish and tells a lot about the secret NATO cooperation with Sweden is this book that reveals that we have suspected that Sweden and NATO has been very, very close in secrecy.
Who is the writer there?
It is Mikael Holmström.
Okay.
Mikael Holmström. It was edited a couple of years ago. It's rather new.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he's very pretty, David Wine.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at him.
I know him. I met him in Berlin once.
You did?
Yes.
Okay, and
I was at a meeting in New York with him.
Okay.
So I know many of those who are writing about another book. When we're now talking about books,
Here is one map from Wine's book.
this recent. Den här boken om kärnvapen. Vad är den då?
Är det inte här? Det där är Ukraine, Flashpoint in Ukraine kanske.
Någon boken om kärnvapen, den nya boken om kärnvapen som jag har. Eller relativt nya boken.
Mm.
Vad konstigt. Den kan man, det här är den. Om man ska vi tala lite om böcker som är väldigt viktiga.
Ja.
Jag förstår det här. Så den som har lärt mig vad USA planerar, eller vad USAs mål är, det är den här. Den refererar, det är Zbigniew Brzezinski, The Grand Chessboard. Och den är ett måste för alla som överhuvudtaget är intresserade av vad USA planerar.
Har han avslöjat det där? Så öppenhjärtligt.
Ja,
Zbigniew.
han har kartor här också. Hur de ska göra. Kan man se här. Den här är nog den viktigaste för att förstå vad som pågår nu.
Okej.
Här kan man se enligt den här boken The Grand Chessboard kom 1997. Man brukar säga att det är en handbok i världsdiktatur. Den visar här vikten av att USA tar
Wait. We're talking Swedish now.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Let's go back to English.
This is... Did I speak Swedish? I didn't even notice it.
It's very late now.
This is one of the most important books for understanding the U.S. strategy. It is called Handbook in World Dictatorship. Zbigniew Brzezinski, The Grand Chessboard, American Primacy and its Geostrategic Imperatives. And here you can see one of the maps of what the US has to do to conquer Europe. To conquer and get a grip over Europe and decide over Europe, you have to have a friendly France government. They have it now. A friendly German government. You have it now. And a friendly Polish government. You have it. And Ukraine has to be in their grip. It was written in 1997.
Shit.
Yeah. So it's sort of the planning, what we see, like Syria, it was planned already in 1983. When I was in New York in 1983, I understood that Syria was in the pipeline. So it's not just happening, it's planned. We have to learn this. It's important to learn how they plan everything.
And he has described it in his book. It's quite amazing. So it's quite obvious and everything.
Yes, it's not a secret. If you want to know it, you know it.
Yeah.
It's not a surprise when they go into a country. It's planned.
Yeah.
And this is maybe, as I've been an old activist against nuclear weapons, this was edited in 2007, 2007. Empire and the Bomb. How the US uses nuclear weapons to dominate the world. And here we have everything about their history and their plannings to use nuclear weapons.
Okay.
So if you just have the books and read them, you know it.
Yeah. I'm still checking Base Nation. And here we have these.
Han har glömt bort några jag har skrivit till honom. Jag känner ju honom. Så att han vill att jag ska skriva ett kapitel i nästa bok och
So
skriva om Norden.
he forgot some here, yeah? You have a
han
better
glömde bort
map.
det.
But we had shown them already, yeah. And then we had this one, calculating the costs of military bases. What do we have more here? Displaced. What would that mean?
You know, where they have displaced people. Chased them away so they can build a base.
Mm.
You can see it here in Diego Garcia and here.
Mm. Oh God, what's this? But this is...
Military bases abroad, 1945.
Gosh.
They took over the British. Immediately after the war, they took over the British bases. And first they had bases in the Philippines. The Philippines. But most of these bases were British, the Commonwealth.
So this is British Empire, sort of.
Yeah, it was the British Empire, and they took over the British Empire. The US took over the British Empire.
Yeah.
That's why they so rapidly could go worldwide.
Yeah. This is 1939. We're going back in time here.
Many maps.
Oh, this is interesting too. 1776.
US military bases abroad from 1776 to 1903. You had them here, so they have always been far away from their homeland. And of course, early on controlling Russia. It was one of the most important things.
And this is sort of fresh. This is now.
Mm-hmm. But I criticized him that he had forgotten Svalbard, he had forgotten some bases here. So I said, you have the Estonian. He had no idea about what happened in Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. He didn't know about that. So I wrote a letter to him after I bought the book. He said, well, then the next book you will write a chapter about that, he said.
Okay, we started with a better map, sort of. So, nevertheless.
I think that was all.
Nevertheless.
He's a very nice guy.
Yeah.
I have good contact with him.
We can take contents too. And we're at it. Okay.
Now you see, going to Agneta, it's worthwhile. It's worthwhile.
Indeed.
In 1983, there was a huge debacle in Washington because under Reagan administration, the CIA had done extraordinary, cruel, terrible things in the whole world. It was revealed, and CIA has to make another strategy. So, did they stop doing what they had been doing all the time? No. By infiltrating, undermining, distorting government and parties in other parts of the world, and specifically in the East, in the eastern part of Europe and in Russia and Ukraine and all over. Then they formed something that was called National Endowment for Democracy. So they got money to form groups, study groups, information groups, culture groups. In Russia, for example, I think there are about 40 different groups under different names. The important demand they have, these groups, is to work for the US. They get cars, computers, offices, all kinds of equipment to form organizations or groups which are distorting the society.
Okay.
About 30 is in Ukraine, and I think it's 40 here in Russia or more. And in the other who are targeted are Venezuela and and some other countries.
Ta upp det.
So what Putin was accused for,
Higher, please.
he was accused for not letting the free word. He was styming the free word, the free expression of opinion, they said. No, he said, they can form any group they want, but they have to tell me where they get their money.
Yeah.
That's why Putin's name was, that Putin was blamed for not letting people speak in Russia. It was but nobody told about National Endowment for Democracy. So that's one of the reasons I used to tell this when I'm talking about how to destabilize countries from within.
Yeah.
That was National Endowment for Democracy has been doing specifically in Russia.
Yeah. National Endowment for Democracy. I guess you could find it on internet, yeah?
You find it on the internet. All this I found on the
If you
internet.
couldn't read it properly, here in the video, check it out.
I have information about this, what I'm talking about, because I am not sure. Yes, on William Bloom. William Bloom, you can find a national, and he explained what I recently just explained for you. He has written about it, about what Ned is really doing.
Okay, thanks. How exciting.